we didn't really solve the optimal diet. We didn't find the optimal diet that really can fight against obesity. But we managed to get 20 million euro from the European Union to run a multi-center trial based on a lot of inspiration I got from the discussion and work with Klaus. That we felt it was too simplistic just to, tell people you should cut down on fat, you should cut down on simple sugars, you should cut down on everything. We realized that you should actually eat more of a lot of foods that actually can provide you with more satiety, but also give you more pleasure. And we had several smaller studies that actually supported that you can get more satiety, so you don't need to be so restrictive. It was a family-based intervention where we tested 5 different diets. But I can tell you also in the children who never counted calories or anything, but just had the same diet as the rest of the family, the overweight and obese children in these families, they spontaneously started to lose weight without being aware of it, simply because they were served a diet in the home that gave them a lot of palatability, but also much more satiety for fewer calories. So that is the concept. I think the problem is still we realize when such a big study is over and we don't see the patients any longer, they will start to regain. We see that all the time. And I realized, again, this is due to the lack of that is, you need to have the palatability and the cooking into it, the gastronomy angle. And so I felt now we have this splendid information about the optimal nutrient composition of the diet where if people eat that diet, they don't need to count calories more to control their body weight. But we need to take it one step further. And then I was in contact with the Danish Nordea Foundation, who was actually willing to support some major issue, a major program that could change the health of the Danish population. And that could be through improved nutrition. And I felt if we want to conduct a big trial and really to try to improve the Danish diet, of course we need to look at NOMA and the success of the new Nordic diet. So again, I contacted Klaus and said, well, instead of just doing what we used to do, why not create a new Nordic diet, not for gastronomists, but for every Danes, and maybe something that could spread out at a regional diet that is based on what you grow locally and should also be extremely palatable and tasty. And of course, it should be healthy and comply with the information we got from Diogenes trial. So we actually managed to get $20 million from the Nordea Foundation to pursue this. So the starting point was really to get, again, to tell Klaus, okay, now we need to define the new Nordic diet and try to develop something every people can find out to prepare for themselves.
So, and before going into that work, we had to sort of settle an objective common ground. And the work package I was asked to direct eventually was asked to come up with a master plan or a kind of menu for 1 year's lovely meals that would combine our consideration for everyone's individual health, for the health of the planet, and that would also underline this idea of Nordic identity, and it should by all means be accessible to a normal citizen. By accessible, the food that we would come up with that should be cooked for children in schools and or in private homes should be easy to make, easy to afford, easy to find. You should be able to find the produce in a supermarket around the corner, and it should be easy to fall in love with. And we decided, in order to underline this Nordic thing, that these meals should be based on indigenous food that is rooted in our culture, produced with local resources, and that to the largest possible extent express the cold climate territory they derive from. We initially made a careful plan to involve stakeholders within the fields of nutritional science, sustainability, gastronomy, and children's food culture in the process of defining the new Nordic diet. Even our cruelest enemies and opponents had their say. The advisory board 1 in my work package has done a tough job of quantifying the produce or the ingredients, the number of carrots and celeriacs and wild herbs and berries and mushrooms to be consumed optimally by one individual in 1 year, thus constituting the foundation of the new Nordic diet and differentiating it from the average Danish diet and the recommended Danish diet. And the next page is sort of the conclusion of this work. This is the new Nordic diet in 10 lines. More fruits and vegetables, a lot more berries, cabbage, root vegetables, pulses, potatoes, and fresh herbs. More whole grain, especially cold climate grain varieties such as oat, rye, and barley. More food from the oceans and the lakes. Meat of higher quality, but less, 1/3 less. In America, it might be 2/3 less. Meat of a higher, more food from the wild landscapes. Choose organic whenever you can. Avoid food additives. More meals closer to the season. More homemade food. Throw less. My advisory board 2 and 3, composed of some of the greatest chefs in our region, developed the recipes based on those principles for the family and school meals, and these recipes are now being handed back to Arne's research groups.
You will see that in contrast to current dietary advices in Scandinavia, we have actually elaborated much more, made food-based recommendations. So we even have how much cabbage we recommend people to eat every day. And if you look at this, this is a new Nordic, the Nordic nutrient recommendations, whereas this is our recommendations. And of course, everything here is really calculated to ensure that they get all the nutrients, but also the right macronutrient composition with whole grain and glycemic index, etc. But it's not really a big deal. If you try to stick to these amounts, you'll actually end up with this very healthy diet. So now we have cooking books with 200 recipes, and this is the work of Claus in Work Package 1, the definition and development of the new Nordic diet, and then we have tested in focus groups and sensoric panels the acceptability, and there's been some changes made based on this results. Then subsequent, we are doing a randomized trial in adults, and we're using a supermarket we have at the university, so they get all their food free of charge from the supermarket, so the barcodes are used for the composition of the diet. And then we also have some appetite regulatory studies with looking at different foods, and then subsequently we will have a huge intervention study in different schools where we take over the provision of school meals in 3,000 school children for 6 months. So we have huge buses with DEXA scanners and lab technicians and all the equipment to drive around to conduct this trial with 15 chefs as well. And so we have the lab and communication. So it's a huge program running for 5 years. This is just to show you an idea about this supermarket where we have 2,500 foods. So we really provide the families all the food free of charge. And here, so the barcode is used for the nutritional composition, and it's based on the principle what you put in the basket is actually what you are consuming. So instead of giving people instructions, we're giving them the food. And we have a lot of very good evidence to show that this is a way to do it. A little about the branding.
Well, normally in a research project like this, I guess that you would just sit down and wait, maybe 5, 6 years, and then the study's output would be published in some internal medical thing. And I asked Arne 1 year ago, do you think this is ethically correct to hide what we actually see and believe in for the whole population for 6 years? And Arne, he looked at me and he said, no, that is not correct. So we decided not to wait for the results and to try to give healthy food a better brand now. I must say that I totally agree with good people such as Michael Pollan and Alice Waters that when it comes to help our children and friends to avoid obesity and diabetes too, the most important thing we need to teach them is to cook for themselves, thus creating involvement, knowledge, and restoring some sort of linkedness to nature in the meals. You can find no enemy of New Nordic food. This virtual brand benefits tourism, raises the quality of the home market demand and the inner value of our food production. Right now, the New Nordic Diet and Opus is approached and embraced by all major health and social change NGOs. We are joining forces with similar structures in the other Nordic countries, and with the Nordic chefs, the rock stars of the restaurant scene, as ambassadors, and Noma, the regional pride, as a vehicle. I believe that in maybe half a year, 8-10 months, we might end up with one of the strongest and most long-lasting attacks ever on obesity, unhealthiness, and ignorant eating. The Vikings burned down the European villages and raped their women. I have to say that this movement is different. Our ultimate ambition is to develop regional cuisines with healthy food and a strong identity all over the world. New Nordic cuisine is not a declaration of war against American burgers, French food, Mexican mole or sushi. It is not a crusade against Moroccan tagine or Italian pizza. We don't feel any affinity with nationalistic ideas. The true goal is global diversity and local coherent food cultures. If this movement of ours does represent a threat to something, then let it be the transnational junk and fast food industry dominated by huge, heartless corporations ruining our health, undermining our independence, and damaging our planet.
Let me just wrap up here and say, I think we have taken a major step really to bridge nutrition science and gastronomy. And the New Nordic Diet is a regional, more healthy and unprocessed diet. And it's our ambition that all regions in the world could actually do the same, form their own regional diet based on the same principles. And I think we have seen some very good trends here in the Bay Area actually to do the same. So this is an idea that can be taken up by other regions. That's it. Thank you.